Howdy fellow skeptics, Lester the Skeptic 10 here once again. Going to walk through the concept or principle of list management. Now in QuickBooks, they have a menu item spelled out as lists. Here in GNU Cash, we don't exactly have that. So, accounts, let's go ahead and expand assets. Now, when it comes to establishing your balances, especially when it comes to when you are operating as a business, and again, as I said in a previous video, reconciliation will be a recurring theme of thought when it comes to tracking your finances. And what you might end up doing, depending on the volume that you're going to have to retroactively record. What I've been coached to provide customers and businesses when it comes to doing the process of bank reconciliation, it is going to be a referral or deferral to a bank statement provided by your institution and coordinating that with the proper dates. So I can edit the account, and most software solutions provide this as an option. And you can say the balance, and if you're going to, what you would do for the date is refer to your bank statement. Again, that's something you get from your institution, and often with a lot of banks and credit unions, you can get that digitally. So it makes it easier for you to do some cross-referencing between the two, between what the statement relays, and you can start building out your balance that way. And then again, going back to how many transactions you might have to fill, you're going to have to weigh that, and that's going to be up to you and whoever else you may have involved in your business when it comes to tracking those transactions and keeping record of those happenings. Otherwise, what I've done for my personal is start with, I went in and just did it for the day I started tracking what's happening with my bank account. So that would be my quote opening balance. But again, when it comes to the reconciliation process, you want to be as close to one-to-one with your official bank statement or whatever statement that you get from your institution, like your credit card or your credit union. So that's number one. That's usually where people start. Now, when it comes to recording these events happening in your business or in your day-to-day interactions and purchasing and recording times when you receive payment for, whether we're talking like your paycheck or you if you are an hourly employee, for example, you could start keeping track of that as well. One thing that I got from a former football player, Chris Carter, talking about Chris Carter Inc. this, Chris Carter Inc. that, you might want to start thinking about yourself as someone who could provide a service or a product if you happen to do that. Now, like I said in the previous video, not sure if GNU Cash, based on my short use, is the best to track inventory because there's a lot that goes into inventory tracking. Mainly, I would say, particularly if you are stocking inventory or goods to be sold and you're selling those. You're looking at the asset value of those items you may store in, say, your house or some other location, and you're trying to track the valuation and the performance of inventory, whatever that happens to be. So, but for someone like myself, who is more service-based, that's a little easier for a solution like GNU Cache. So either way, the way you will relate to these events, you're seeing here accounts, but you can go to business, and now you have your lists at the most broad level, at least in GNU Cache. You've got your customers, your vendors, and your employees. Now, that's going to be something once you or you may already have an employee base, then you got to start tracking that. But for someone like myself, I would have to worry about customers and vendors. Now, again, for most people like me, I work a day job, and so my customer is gonna be very basic. My employer, because they pay me for services I've rendered. Okay? And think of it that way as well. For the employer, they're your customer in certain ways. And then vendor is just someone you're paying for services rendered or goods and products sold. So, however you're going to start, you can start. So I can go to vendor overview, and as you can tell, I have an empty vendor list. And I go to new. I'm going to go vendor, let's do vendor 1. I want to see how this looks based on the setup that I had. Okay. Interesting. And so I'm going to go... Oh, the other thing I noticed is the next thing you want to do is think about your terms. In software like QuickBooks, you do have things set up by default, and there's a default template for your terms list. Everyone's sensibilities are going to be a little different. I like to work at a very minimal level. I don't like having things too overblown by default and at the very onset. But if you kind of have an idea already about what your common terms are used, usually for utility bills, they're usually on a monthly basis, unless you have very specific packages you opt for. Let's take Amazon Prime. You have the monthly option, you have the yearly option. So for monthly, you would just do net 30 is a common term. And again, that's just from my background as a QuickBooks support person in the past. And I still do daily dealings within QuickBooks itself with my day job. So just put in the description due in 30. And I still don't know what this, let's see, Proximo, I will have to look more into that. It looks like, okay, if you have, looks like we can do discounts. I'll look more into that, but this is the typical, how many days until my discount? For early payment. Good to know. I like the tooltip already. Okay. And bills, and you might have gotten this in any utility, cell phone, especially if you're using the typical billing, which is actually termed postpaid. Of course, there have been a lot of advertisements for prepaid services, but you get a bill and they'll say this is due in 30 days. So how do we communicate that? So if we go back to the accounts tab, let's go back to the accounts. Okay. I don't see a liability account. So what do I have to do? Because that's what a bill is. It's communicating to you or your business that you're liable to render payment for services or products sold or goods sold. You're liable to pay that vendor for that. So let's go ahead and create new. That's the typical name. And that's a common number. And again, if you're a business, it's going to go back to the art of deferral and referral and consultation with your bookkeeping and accounting professional. In terms of how you want to, if you're going to use account numbers or account codes. So I'm going to go, it's a liability, or I can just go accounts payable. Okay. Account type, parent. Let's try that. There it is. So in my bill, I can now create it. I'll right click and I go new bill. And I'll set the term to net 30. And one thing I'm noticing in GNU Cache specifically is these get stickied. So when you start typing, it auto completes what you've entered from before, unless you enter something entirely different. I'll just say utility bill. That will be a project. So that's the other thing, like I said, is with my short time using GNU Cache compared to QuickBooks, this one I can say offhand is lacking in terms of the specificity you want in terms of, okay, service, item, or a charge. You only got hours, you got material, and again, I'll probably do some more digging, but it's a project in this case. And expense. Now, going back to accounts, this concept of double-sided accounting, I don't know exactly how long it's been around, but it does allow you to get an idea of what the transaction will touch. So like I said, the bill will touch your accounts payable, but is this an income? Is it going to be an income, or is it going to go to an expense? Usually with a bill, you're liable to pay for, like I said, a service or a product you're looking to obtain from a provider. So typically it'd be an expense. What expense? Again, if you're a business, consult with your accounting professional. They will make sure what account that would be mapped to. Now going back to accounts, I've seen a lot of financial reports where the chart of accounts was, dare I say, ungodly. It was super lengthy, but I understand why they would do that, for reasons of high specificity. Sometimes it's not enough to just put things in a general account, like accounts payable. If I wanted to be very specific, I would spell out accounts payable. Okay, now for what am I being liable to pay for? If I want to go that level of detail and specificity, I might just make a sub-account and put that there. So that's something you would want to account for. And in terms of income, same thing. You might want to more specifically track, okay, where am I getting the most income? So, but how will I know that if I don't distinguish my service income, or shall I say like my day job income versus my side hustle? And or how efficient is my side hustle versus my day job, for example. On one level, it's going to be more easily said your day job will be more efficient in giving you more income. So gross income anyway. And that's the other thing too when we talk about a profit and loss report. So that will likely be explored later, but let's go back to the bill. Okay. All right, so I've got I'm going to say this is going to be it's a utility bill. Okay. I'm going to save it for now because maybe I don't want it in something as generic as expenses. What kind of expense? What kind of utility? So I'm going to go to a new account. See if I can add, there it is. It's an expense. I'm going to say if I spell utilities right. And again, this is just based on a lot of the reports I have had to audit for my conversion work. And I think it's the default numbering sequence within QuickBooks. And 6,000 series would be for your expense according to QuickBooks, at least in default setup. But every business does it differently. So again, going back to deferral consulting with your accounting professional if you happen to have one, or anyone in coordination helping you with your business. So let's do $6,005. Let's do that. And there it is. Now what I can do with the bill is I can be more specific with it. And now that I've got that, I can now post it. This is like, at least in GNU cash terms, this is like drafting it. I haven't posted it against the accounts payable. So in this case, if I want to, like I said, in terms of specificity, I can do this. Create a new account. You know, tie it against my vendor. So I can go here. And then do that. And as you can tell, that hasn't hit that account until I post it. Okay. And now I can choose. Interesting. Okay. I think I know what I need to do. I'm going to edit the account. And be more specific. And I'm going to do the same thing with electricity. So let's see. Post it. And there it is. And the status you're going to see is unpaid. Now, I know it's just one vendor, one bill, but you're going to see in reports let's do payable aging. And for a report like this, just as an example, if you have multiple vendors, you'll get to see a bird's eye view of the summary for all the bills you may end up owing, you know, over time. So that's at least one thing you're going to start learning if you're new to bookkeeping software, like you're fresh to it, is that you'll be able to get a look at what finances are about to hit your book, your whatever account you may have linked to draw and debit from, and make sure those payments are processed and rendered are received for those purchases on the side of a vendor. All right, so hopefully that wasn't too much, guys. I appreciate your patience as I walked you through account setup and reasoning, and slowly but surely we'll start carving out what this is going to look like. Okay, so again, until next video, fellow skeptics, peace out, and I'll catch you all on the other side.